Assalamualaikum class. So today we'll be going into our last chapter for this course, which is array. Okay, so for this chapter I'm going to teach you what exactly is an array and how we can use array inside a program. Alright? Now, before we go into what exactly is an array, I just want to ask you a question. Why do we need a variable? Okay, inside a program, a variable is used to store data. For example, if you want to get an input from the user, you need a variable. If you want to store someone's name, you need a variable. If you want to store a number, you need a variable. Basically, a variable is used to store data. Alright, so whenever you have a variable, okay, you're going to store something inside it and you need to declare your variable. So whenever a variable is declared, it will be stored inside your memory. Okay, so imagine memory inside the computer. Alright, there are many kind of, to make this easier for you to sort of imagine inside your computer, the memory, there are a lot of allocation for your variables. So let's say you declare int num1, meaning that you will allocate inside the memory a space, okay, name num1. So whenever you do num1 equals to 10, alright, 10 will be stored inside num1. So there will be 10 here. Okay, so whenever you declare a variable, automatically the variable will be allocated inside the memory. Okay, so for example, you have int num2, okay, then inside the memory you also have a space for you to store your data. So for example, here you have 7. Okay, so another variable that we have here is num3. So since you want to put 2 inside there, so there could be 2 here. Alright, now when it comes to variable, alright, variable is able to store only one data. Please remember that. Okay, so let's say you have num1 equals to 10, and then the next line of code you do num1 equals to 5. Alright, so a variable can only store one data. Since inside your variable right now there's a value, okay, so whenever you want to store 5 inside num1, alright, this 10 will now be replaced, alright, by 5. Okay, why is it replaced? Because a variable can only store one data. Alright, that is a variable. Okay, but whenever you need to store more than one data inside your variable here, you're going to use an array. Okay, so let's say I do int num, and then with an array you will have this box here. Okay, let's say I want to create an array that can store 3 data at one time. So I can do 3. So if you see a variable that has a little box here, okay, this variable now suddenly becomes an array. Okay, so let's say for example I have a variable here called num, and then I do this little box, and then with the size, so I make this variable to store 3 data, so this has become an array. Alright, so whenever an array is created, okay, you can store more than one data inside here. Let's say you create an array that can store 3 data, so meaning that inside this location, you can store more than one data. Let's say there's 5, there's 7, there's 2. Instead of you storing it in different variables. Okay, so you can use an array to store more than one data inside one variable. So this is what we called an array. Alright, so this is the basic of array. Now, let's go into the definition of an array. What is an array? Alright, by definition, array is a fixed size collection of consecutive memory locations where you can store values of the same data type. Meaning that when you create an array, okay, usually the amount of data that will be stored inside the array is fixed. Okay, so you need to determine how many data that you want to store inside your array. So that is why you will have a size here. Okay, so again, array is also a identifier, meaning that you need to name your array. Okay, so provide a name of your array, and of course you need to declare your array. So your array, the data inside there must have the same data type with each other. So if you declare your array as integer, meaning that all of the data inside your array must be integer. You cannot mix your data with different data types, all right? Because you have declared your array as integer here. So if you want to store characters, then you can do char here. Okay, so depending on what you want to store. Since I want to store numbers here, all right, that is why I declare my array as integer, int. So you need to provide the data type. All right, so first of all, when it comes to creating an array, all right, during declaration, you need to provide the data type, which is the first thing that you need to do. And the second thing that you need to do is you need to provide the size. Okay, once you know what kind of data you want to put inside there, and you have named your array as well, and you have provided the size, only then you can store your data inside your array. So your data must follow the data type. All right, so since I'm storing integers, so my number can be whole numbers. So since I declared this as 3, meaning that I can store up to 3 data inside my array. Okay, but it doesn't matter that the data inside that, it doesn't, when you do 3 here, okay, or 5 or 10, whatever the size is, it doesn't mean that you need to fill it up. Okay, you can also maybe make the array empty if you want. Okay, there can be 1 data, there can be 2 data, there can be 3 data, but you cannot store more than 3, because this size will determine the maximum amount of data that can be stored inside your array. Okay, so if you want to do maybe you want to store 4 data, then you can't do that, because the maximum number of element you can store inside your array is 3. Okay, so the size is very important when you declare your array. All right. Okay, so another thing that you need to know with arrays, all right, how the elements or how the data is stored inside an array, okay, needs to be in order. Meaning that, all right, the data that you store inside here, you need to know where you want to store it. Okay, so if you want to store the first element as 5, the second element as 7, and the third element as 2, okay, the data will be in order. All right, so with an array, the first element will always be 0, no matter what. All right, so if you do 3 here, okay, since the first element is 0, it will be 1, 2, 3, meaning that there are 3 elements inside your array. Okay, but the location of the data will be determined by the index. So when it comes to array, it is important that you know the index of each data. All right, so for example, if I want to put 5 inside an array as the first element, all right, so it will be 0. If I want to put the data 7 inside the array as the second element, then it will be 1. All right, if I want to put 2 inside the array as the third element, it will be 2, because this is the first, this is the second, and this would be the third element. Please remember that with array, you need to know the index. The index always starts with 0. Okay, that's very important for you to remember, right? Alright, so like I said earlier, so whenever you create an array, it is important for you to declare your array. Just like any variable, array is the same. You need to declare your array if you want to use your array. Alright, so if you want to declare your array, this is what you need to have. You need to have the data type, and you also need to have the size. So the data type will determine the data type of elements inside the array. So if I do int num3, alright, so meaning that all of the data inside here will be an integer. So I can put, let's say, 2, I can put here 100, okay? But if I want to put 7.5, this is not possible because all the data that is stored in here needs to be in integer. So if I put 7, this is okay, all right? So same thing goes for different data types. So if I declare my array here as string, okay, with the size of 5, meaning that this array can store up to 5 elements, but all of the data inside here needs to be in string. So I can do here hi, I can do Bob, okay, I can do K, all right, because all of these are string. Okay, with string you can store a lot of characters, all right? So if I do string name, then maybe, okay, inside each what's it called? Inside each element here, okay, maybe you can put the name of different users. For example, let's say here we have Kate, then we have Bob, all right, then we have Ali, okay, because all of these are stored as string, all right. Maximum value that can be stored here is 5, but if you only do 3 elements, it's fine, okay. It doesn't matter that the array needs to be filled in completely, okay. It can store 0 or more value. With array, it can store 0 or more value, okay, but the maximum value that is stored will be determined by the size. So if you put 5 here, maximum, there are 5 elements. So if you put 3 here, maximum of 3 elements, okay. But keep in mind, whenever you declare your array, you need to know the index, all right? So each element will have its own index. Your index will always start at 0. If you notice here, it starts at 0, okay? And it will end at array size -1. Because it starts at 0, of course, the end value here will be -1. So since the size is 5, the last element, the index would be 4. Since the element here is 3, okay, the size is 3, so the last element will be stored at 2. Okay, so this is how you can declare your array. Alright, so once you have declared your array, okay, so whenever we have an array, we need to declare it first. So this is the declaration, okay, that's a declaration. That's a declaration, okay. Once you have declared your array, then we can store the value inside there. So whenever we store the value initially, it is called initialization, all right. The elements needs to be stored inside an array, needs to be enclosed in curly braces and separated by a comma, all right. Initialize the array right after the declaration. So once you have declared your array, then we need to store the value, all right. So let's say I want to store 5, 7, and 2 inside my array. Each element needs to be separated by commas, all right, and these elements needs to be enclosed inside a curly braces, all right. So whenever we want to put our data inside our array, we need to have curly braces and also comma, all right. So if I do 5, 7, 2, meaning that inside this array, okay, I can put 5, 7, 2 in order, all right. So same goes here as well. Since this array is called name and it can store 5 elements, so there will be 5 locations here, okay. So I can store string inside there, so that's why we have what's this called, quotation mark, all right. So depending on your data type, you need to provide the rule, the syntax rules. You need to follow the syntax rules. So if it's string, then you need to have the quotation mark, all right. So if it's char, then you also need to have the single quotation mark. This is double, this is single. That's the difference between string and char, if you remember, okay. So each element needs to be separated by a comma. So if you take a look here, each element is separated by a comma, all right. So at the front and at the end, you need to have curly braces. Okay, so if you notice here, I have provided the size, so meaning that the maximum data that can be stored here is 3, the maximum data that can be stored here is 5, okay, but each index starts with 0, if you notice that, right? But if you don't provide a size here, okay, it is not wrong. You can do this, all right? but okay, the number of elements, the size of the array, okay, will be determined by the number of elements that is stored here. Okay, so if you don't provide the size and you just do char grade and empty size here, and you do equals to curly braces, comma, 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 meaning that there are 1, 2, 3, 4. So automatically this array will be declared with the size of 4 because there are 4 elements. Okay, so when the size is not specified, the size is determined by the number of elements stored inside that array. Okay. Now, here are some things that you need to know when you want to store data inside your array, okay? If an array size is determined, but the element stored is not enough, right? The leftover elements will store the value 0. Like I've said, whenever you declare your array, let's say you do int num3, meaning that inside this array, there can be maximum of 3 elements, okay? But if you do equals to 5, meaning that there's only one data here, right? Okay, so this is not wrong, okay, because when it comes to array, okay, an array can be empty, so an array can store 0 or more values. So if you do int num3 equals to 5, meaning that there is only one value of 5, but the rest will automatically be stored as 0. Okay, the leftover elements will store the value 0. So it doesn't mean that whenever you declare your element as 3 here, okay, you need to fill it completely. Okay, you can just put 1 data, 2 data, okay, but the maximum number of elements need to be determined by the size. Okay, so the leftover will be stored as 0. Okay, so the next thing, elements inside an array can also be stored individually one by one. All right, like I've said, each element inside your array needs to be allocated with its index. All right, an index starts at 0. Okay, and the last element will be -1 from the size. Okay, so if you do int num3, okay, semicolon, meaning that this is the declaration. All right, this is the declaration. Okay, so the next line, if you do num0 equals to 5, meaning that at this location 0, you want to store 5. Okay, so if you do num2 equals to 7, all right, meaning that inside the location 2, I want to put 7 inside there. Okay, if I do num1 equals to 2, meaning that inside the location or index, okay, 1, you will store 2 inside there. So you need to know where you want to put your data. So this is determined by the index. All right, so to store value in a specific location, you need to access the index. This is very important inside an array because you have a lot of data. So when there are a lot of data, you want to know where you want to put your data. So this is determined by the index. Okay, now so let's take a look at this example right here. Okay, the question says determine whether the following code segments are valid or invalid. If you take a look here, int num3 equals to 2, 5, 7, 10. This is of course invalid. Why? Because you want to put maximum of 3 elements, but if you take a look here, there are 4 elements. So meaning that the index is out of bound. So you cannot put this inside there. Okay. Next one, int num3 equals to 46, 8. Okay, so this line is valid, okay, because inside this array, okay, this is called num, okay, so you have 3 allocation, you have 40, you have 6, and you have 8. So with an array, it starts with index 1 is 0, then you have 1, and then you have 2. Okay, so the next line, num1 equals to 55. Although there is a data here, okay, it can always be replaced. So meaning that I wanna put 55 inside the location, inside the index 1. So here, so since there's an element here, okay, this will be replaced with the value 55. Okay, so this is also valid. All right, so the next one, int num3 equals to 46. Okay, this is valid. Okay, because you have this, all right? This is also called num. 1, 2, 3, like I said, okay? You don't have to fill your array completely, okay? So this is valid. So 0, 1, 2, you can put 40 here and 6 here. Since this is empty, this will be 0 here, okay? Then you have num1 equals to 55.5. Is this valid? No, because you declare this as integer, so you cannot put this in. So since this value has a different data type, this is invalid, okay? Moving on to the next one, 8 num3 equals to 40 and 6. So again, the same array here, but this is valid because you have C out num2, okay? You're not doing anything to that array, you're just displaying. So when you do C out num2, what is the output that will be displayed here? It will display the value that is inside the index 2. What is inside 2? 0. So the output here would be 0. So this will be displayed inside your console, okay? So as we all know, an array can store a lot of values, right? So inside the array, there are many elements that you can store inside there. But if you want to display all of that elements, or if you want to do something to the elements inside the array, please do not access that elements, each of those elements manually. Take a look at this example right here. All right, so in num15 equals to 2, 4, 5, 89, 5, 2, 90, 837, 38, 97, 75, 15, 3, 1, 4, 5, meaning that inside this array, so this is declaration and initialization, right? Okay, so this array is called num. Okay, this array called num will store integer values. So there are maximum of 15 elements. Okay, so imagine you will have this array, okay, with 15 elements. Okay, say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So it's only up to 14 because there are 15 elements, okay, and we start with 0. So here the last value will be at 14, index of 14, okay. So inside this, there are these elements, okay. So you have 2. Okay, so let's change the color so that you can see this a bit better. So you have 2, you have 4, you have 5, then you have 89, then you have 5, 2, 9, 0, 8, 3, 7, you have 38, you have 97, you have 75, you have 15, you have 3, 1, 4, and 5. Okay, so there are a lot of numbers that are stored inside this variable, inside this array called num. Okay, so what you want to do here, what this program does is you want to display all of the elements. So see out the num array store, that's why it displays the num array stores. Then since it wants to display all of the numbers, like I said, do not access each element manually because this is an inefficient way to do. There are only 15 elements here, right? But imagine if there are 50 elements, 100 elements, 500 elements. Do you want to copy and paste the same thing over and over again? No, right? Okay, so instead of doing this way, there is a better way for you to do this. Okay, so take a look at the question here. How does the content in array num look like? This is what inside the array looks like. Okay, of course it starts with the index 0 and it will end at size -1. Okay, so this is what the elements that are inside the array. Okay, second question, change the coding above using a more suitable method to access and display the array elements. Like I've said, do not use this method because it is not the wrong way, but it is very inefficient, okay, because you're going to be copy and pasting the same thing. Like I said, since you're doing the same thing over and over again, the keyword here is please use repetition. So you're going to have to use a loop. Okay, so if you take a look here, okay, when we have a loop, there are two different type of loops that we can use, right? Okay, we can either use counter or we can use a sentinel loop. All right, now with an array, do you know the number of elements inside your array? Yes, so of course we're going to be using a counter loop. Do not use a sentinel loop because this is not suitable for that. So you're going to be using a counter loop. The best method or the best structure that can be used for a counter loop is a for loop. So use a for loop because it is the easiest structure. Okay, so let's try and convert this using a for loop. All right, so right here, for. Okay, so we're going to be changing this part here. Okay, so for, let's do for int I. Okay, so equals to what value you want to start with. So since I know that we want to access the first element, okay, since we want to access every single element inside this array, right? Okay, so the first element is located inside the index 0. So you write here int I equals to 0. Then you have semicolon. So the next one is your condition, right? So you have I, it must be less than, all right? So where you want it to stop, okay? Since the size is 15, you can do I less than 15. Or you can do I less than equals to 40. It's up to you. Okay? Then how do you get from 0 to 14? You can do I plus plus. As simple as that. Then open up your curly braces, close up your curly braces. Okay? So what do I need to put inside here? Okay? For every element that I am accessing, so since int I equals to 0, is 0 less than 15? Yes. Alright? So meaning that right now, I is 0. Okay, since you're starting with 0. Is I less than 15? Yes. So it will go inside. So what do you want to do with the first value? I want to display my element because the num array starts 2. So I want to display the first element. So to display, we write here C out. Okay, so what do you want to display? The element. So just write down the array and the index that we're accessing. So since the name of the array is num, okay, so you write here num. Do not write here 0. Why? Because right now we're accessing the I. Okay, so num I here. Okay, so the I will replace each of the index that you see here. Okay, so C out num I. So right now the first one is 0, right? So I is 0. So num I. And then what's the next thing? You want to put a space. So you put a space here. Then semicolon. Okay, so let's close that. Alright, so just close up your curly braces because that's the only thing we're doing. Alright, so since that's the only thing, we go back up. So when we go back up, the I now becomes 1. Alright, so after that, is 1 less than 15? Yes, then it goes inside. Num now becomes num1. So after this, we're going into this element. So num1 is 4. That's why 4 will be displayed. Okay, so if we go back up again, then I becomes 2. Alright, so is 2 less than 15? Yes. Alright, so num2, what is inside num2? Alright, inside num2 there's 5. So then 5 will be displayed. So this will be done repeatedly until the end of the elements. Okay, until we have up to I equals to 14. Is 14 less than 15? Yes. So it will do num 14 here. Okay, so it will display 5 since inside index 14 there's 5. Alright, so it will stop there because when you do I plus plus 15, right? Is 15 less than 15? No. So meaning that it will stop at 14. Right? So we notice that it will start at 0 and it will stop at 14. And that is how you access each element inside your array. Please use a loop. All right? To be more specific, use a for loop. And that is how you can access each element inside your array. Okay? Now, here's another thing that I want you to know when it comes to array, all right? Values stored inside the array doesn't necessarily need to be stored early during compile time every time. This means that whenever you declare an array, okay, the data here, it doesn't need to be stored directly after you declare it, okay? Meaning that you can just write int num3 and then you close it off with a semicolon. This means that you don't necessarily need to store the value directly after that, okay? So instead, values can be stored inside an array during runtime, okay? Values can be stored dynamically as the program runs. So what this means is that whenever you do this, okay, int num3, okay, what you're doing is you're declaring your array. So when you do int num3, you are creating a space, okay, to store your data. So you will have 0, 1, and 2, and then this array is called num. So this is what you're doing. So when you do int num3, you are declaring this, okay? Then for int I equals to 0, so meaning that, okay, you are accessing the index for your elements, all right? So for int I equals to 0, okay, so this represents your I, okay, your index. So if I is 0, since we're starting at 0, right? So this is the first element, I equals to 0. So what is inside num0? So num I, so we're starting at 0. So for int I equals to 0, right now, I is 0, okay? Is 0 less than 3? True. So it will go inside. Then you do num I equals to 100, okay? So I is 0, so num0 equals to 100. So meaning that inside num0, I want to put 100 inside there, okay? So once you've done that, okay, go up there, right? I++. So I++, this now becomes 1. Okay, so is 1 less than 3? Yes. So again, you're storing 100 inside the index as well. So num I, it has now changed to 1, right? Okay, so inside num1, again, I want to store 100. So that is why inside here, I have 100. Okay, moving on up there, I++, this now becomes 2. Okay, so is 2 less than 3? Yes. So it goes inside. Now I becomes 2, right? So num2 equals to 100. So I'm accessing the last index here, 2. So equals to 100. So that is why inside here you have 100. Okay? Then go back up, I++. Then you have 3. Okay? Is 3 less than 3? No. So it will stop here. So what this coding does is it is accessing the elements one by one and storing the element. Okay? Since the code here num I equals to 100, it means that every single index I want to store 100 inside there. Okay, so the main point here, I just want to say here is, okay, you can always separate the initialization and the declaration. So usually this is what people do, okay, when they want to store the data dynamically. So meaning that the data inside there, okay, can come from the user. It can be updated at different times, right? So this initialization equals to something doesn't necessarily needs to be stored directly at the top after you declare it, okay? Okay, so now let's try to do a simple exercise that involves an array, okay? So if you take a look at this question right here, it asks us to accept 5 numbers from the user, meaning that we're going to get 5 different numbers from the user, okay? As we all know, we are repeating this input, okay, because we're going to get 5 input from the user. So instead of us storing these 5 numbers inside 5 different variables, for example, num1, num2, num3, num4, num5, you don't need to do that. We're going to store all of those numbers inside only one array, okay? Because an array, it can store a lot of data, all right? So since we're trying to basically repeat the input, we're going to be using a repetition. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to, of course, write our preprocessor directives. Okay, then we're going to be using our namespace. Okay, and then we have our main program. Okay, so at the end of each program, we must have return 0. All right, now the first thing that we need to do is we need to get the input from the user. So do we know when to stop? Yes, because we want to get 5 input from the user. So we're going to be using a counter loop. All right, so we're going to be doing for int, let's say I'll just use I as the control variable. So how many times I want to repeat this? 5 times. So it's either I can do int I equals to 1 or int I equals to 0. Okay, since we're dealing with array, okay, as we all know, an array, its index starts with 0. So I suggest that you do int I equals to 0 so that the first element will be stored inside index 0. Okay, so int I equals to 0, I less than, which is our size, our array size, which we're gonna store around 5 numbers. So I less than 5, all right, I plus plus. So by using this loop, we're gonna repeat this 5 times because 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is around 5 times, all right? So the first thing we wanna do is we ask the question to the user, enter number. Okay, so we're gonna get the number from the user, C in num. Okay, so once we get the number from the user, for example, the user here enters 5. Okay, so what's the next line? We're going to be taking this number that we just get from the user, we're going to store it inside our array. Okay, so first of all, we need to declare the array. Okay, so at the top here, we need to declare our variable. First of all, we need to declare num here, int num. Okay, so if you take a look at the question here, it asks us to store each number inside the array num. So we're going to name our array as num. So instead of using num here, let's use number. Okay, because we're going to be declaring our array as num. So what we can do here is you can either write in the same line or in a different line. I'll just do it in the same line because I'm going to declare my array as integer because I'm going to store numbers inside there. Right? So num. Okay, how many data you want to store in there? Because I want to store 5 data, so I'll do int num 5. All right, so this is how you declare your array. So you must have a data type and then you specify the size of your array. Okay, so number here is your variable. So right now inside variable number we have the data 5. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to take this 5 that is inside number, we want to store it inside our array. Okay, so we're going to do num. Okay, so what is the first index of the array? 0, right? So as we all know, we're starting I with 0. Okay, so we just need to write num I equals to number, meaning that this number will be stored inside this first location. Okay, so right now inside num I you will have number. All right, so if I show you this, all right, so right now we have a variable called number, right? So we took 5 from the user and then you will have num I equals to number, right? Okay, earlier. Okay, so we know that first of all our I earlier was 0. Okay, so right now num 0 equals to 5, meaning that you want to store 5 inside the array num at the index 0. So we all know this is our array called num. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So since we're storing 5 inside index 0, so this is the first data that will be stored. Oh, sorry, not 0, 5. Okay, so moving on. Right? So if we take, let's say we've done this, right? Okay, and then we go back up, all right? I plus plus now becomes 1, all right? So we take the second number. Let's say we take, what's our second number? We take 7, okay? So num I from 0, it becomes 1, all right? So 7 will be stored inside the index 1, all right? So I'll show you again. Okay, so let's say we have the next one, I now updated to 1, all right? So this has now become 1. Okay, and this, the number also changes to 7. Okay, so right now 7 will be stored inside the location 1, the index 1. Okay, so if you move on to the next I, which is 2, all right, so the number that it takes, okay, is, the next number is 2, all right, so it will be 2 here, so 2 here, okay, 2 inside 2, so this will be stored 2. And then we move on to the next line, which is 3, so 3 will be stored inside, next number is 8, right, so 8 will be stored inside index 3. And then lastly, we have number 12. 12 will be stored inside index 4. So this will be 12. And this is how you fill up your array, or you store your array one by one fill up your data inside the array one by one by accessing the index. All right. So that is how we do the first task, which is taking our number and storing it inside the array. Okay, so one way is for you to take the input first and then you store it. Okay, so here we take input from user and then we store input inside array. So this is one way of doing it. To make it easier for you, you can also do this as well. All right, instead of you storing it inside a variable called array, we can automatically store it inside the array. Okay, so this is another way for you to do this. All right, so instead of we writing number here, we just do int num5. So meaning that every single time the input is entered by the user, let's say the user enters here as 5, 5 will automatically be stored inside num I. So I currently right now is 0, so it will be stored inside the first index. And then move on to the next one, and then move on to the next one, and so on. Right? So the array will be, the element will be stored inside the array one by one. So this is another way for you to do this. Okay? So once you've done that, okay, we've filled up the loop for input. Okay? So the next one is we want to display the numbers within our array. Okay, again, if we take a look at our screen right here, all right, this is our array. Okay, 5, 7, 2, 8, 12. So in order for us to display each of this, okay, we need to access each one. So starting with the first index, and then we move on to the next one, and then we move on to the next one, and then move on to the next one until the end of the array. Okay, so we're starting at the first index and ending at the last index. So again, the same concept is we're going to be using a loop because there are many elements inside the array, so we're going to use a loop. All right, so for, okay, let's say int j equals to 0. Okay, because the first index is 0, and then j less than 5. Okay, you can do j equals less than equals to 4 if you also want to do that. Okay, that's possible. All right, j plus plus. Okay, so C out. Okay, so what we want to do here is we want to display whatever is inside the array. So we're accessing the first element. So C out num j. Okay, so if we do num j here, so what's inside num 0? Okay, starting with the first one, inside num 0, that's 7. So that is what will be displayed onto your screen. So we write here cout number, okay, and then we do this, and then we do end L, okay. Okay, so basically this line, right, will be repeated around 5 times, okay, from index 0 until index 4. So it will display all the numbers that is inside the array. All right, so this is loop for output. All right, so basically this is it, right? This is the answer to this question. All right, so moving on to the next question, okay. The previous question involves repetition with a counter control loop, because we know when to stop, right? So with the previous question, we only want to get 5 numbers, which have been stated in the question. But with this question, it says accept gender from the user, whereby if the user enters S, the input will stop. Okay, or the program will stop. All right, so this means that we're going to be using a sentinel loop instead of counter-controlled loop. All right, so let's start off with that. Okay, with a sentinel loop, it is best that we use a do-while loop. Okay, so we do. All right, so and then we will have a while. Inside here, you will have your condition. All right, so first of all, okay, the things that we want to repeat is we want to repeat enter gender. Okay, so the user will enter the gender. So cin, let's say I do gen. All right, so this will either be M or F or S, so meaning that the gen should be a char. All right, so char gen. Okay, so what do you want to do? What do you want to do with this gen? You want to store it inside an array. Okay, so the array is called gender. All right, and this is how you're going to declare it. So char gender, and then you should specify the size. Since we don't know when the input will stop, all right, how many input you want to get, so it's up to you the size that you want to put in. So let's say for now I'll just put 50. Okay, so the maximum number of data that can be stored in this array is 50, okay, which is quite a lot. All right, so we'll do here gender, okay, then equals to gen, meaning that whatever that is inside gen, let's say for example, first of all, we're gonna get F. Okay, so if you want to store F inside an array, so the first data should be stored inside an array with the index of 0. All right, so this means that we need to know the index. All right, so let's say we call the index as I. All right, so since we want to store the index at the first location, so we know that gender, right, the I here should be 0. Okay, because we want to store F inside the index 0. Okay, so actually before we start off, we can do I equals to 0. So right now I is 0. Okay, so then we get the input F, and then we store gender I. So since I right now is 0, so gender 0 equals to F, and this is how we store the F inside the first location. Okay, so how do we move on to the next location? So this means that we need to update the I. All right, so we can do I plus plus. Okay, suddenly the I from 0, it becomes 1. All right, so this is how we're gonna do the array and how we store the data inside the array with sentinel loop. All right, so the while here, the condition here is if the gen here, okay, if the gen is not equals to S, meaning that any data, okay, that is entered by the user that is not S, the looping will continue. But if the user enters S, it will stop. Okay, so basically this is how we do the looping for the this is how we store data using a sentinel loop inside an array. Okay, so let's go into this. Okay, let's say the first data is f, okay? So we start in index 0, which is f, okay? It will be updated as I++. Then when it goes back up, all right, is basically gen right now. Is it s? No, so it will go back up, all right? So when it goes back up, the input now will be still f because the second data is f again. But instead of storing it in 0 because I is updated, so gender now will be 1 equals to f, okay? So f will now be stored in index 1, and then I++, this becomes 2, okay? Is gen s? No, so it will go back up, all right? So gen now becomes, the third data is m, all right? So gender I has been updated to 2, so what you want to store inside 2, I want to store m inside 2, okay? So that is how the data is stored, and then I++ becomes 3, and then goes back, it goes here, okay? So is gen not equals to s? That is true because right now it is m, all right? So it goes back up, so m now has been changed to f, all right? So since I has been updated to 3, so f will be stored inside index 3, okay? And then I++, it becomes 4, all right? So it checks the condition again. Is f not equals to s? Yes, so it goes back up. So this now becomes m, all right? That is the next data. So gender, since I has been updated, so gender 4 equals to m, okay? So m will be stored inside index 4. So I++, this now becomes 5, okay? So again, is gender, which is m, all right? Is it not equals to s? Yes, so that's true. So it will take the next input, which is f, all right? So gender I has been updated to 5, and then it goes to f, okay? F is stored inside index 5, all right? I++, this becomes 6, okay? So the next line is gen, is f not equals to s? Yes, so it goes back up again, and then suddenly the user enters s, meaning that it wants to stop, okay? So gender I, which is 6, equals to s. So meaning that the s will also be stored inside this array, okay? So then I++, so this now becomes 7, okay? So then gen not equals to s, so that is true. So this is how the looping will stop here, okay? So inside the array, it will store all of the data until s, okay? So again, although you put the size here as 50, it doesn't mean that we have to fill it completely, all right? So this is the loop for input. Okay, so let's move on to the output. So the output, we want to display cout gender stored, okay, and L, all right? So here we want to do a loop for output, okay? So since we have filled our array with those data, okay, so we know that the data is contained up to index 6, okay? So where do we get the 6, all right? We already know from the I. So the I specified the number of data that has been stored inside your array, okay? So we can do our looping here. So for int j equals to 0, since we want to start with index 0, so j must be less than, okay, we could put I here, okay, so meaning that it will be is 0, okay, it will be like is 0, not 0, yeah, is 0 less than I, which is 7. So meaning that it will be up from 0 until 6, okay, so 7 is not included, so that is correct, okay? So it will be the data from index 0 until the data until index 6, all right? But the thing here is we want to display only the f and the m's. We don't want to display the s value, okay? So we want to exclude the s. So what we can do here is we want to stop until index 5. So we can do I minus 1. Okay, so if we do j less than I minus 1, okay, so this means that, okay, it will stop until 7 minus 1, 6. So 6 is not included, 0 until 5 only. All right, so this is what you can do. All right, then you can do j plus plus. all right, open up braces. Okay, so again, I repeat this, you do -1 if you don't want to include the last element there. But if you want to include S as the output, then you can just do I. All right, so since the question doesn't want to include S, so we do I minus 1. All right, so all we need to do here is C out. Okay, how do we get the data from the array? So the name of the array is gender. Okay, so we do here is J. Right, and then we have a space here. Okay, so for example, it starts J as 0. Okay, is 0 less than, which is 7 minus 1, 6, is J less than 6 true? So it goes inside. All right, so gender J, so right now gender J, gender 0 is F, so that's why here it will display F and then with a space. And then it goes back up, J now becomes 1. All right, is 1 less than 6? Yes, so gender 1, next value is F. So this will continue until it reaches, okay, so let's try and do this. Okay, so go back up again, J++, it becomes 2. All right, is 2 less than 6? True, it will go inside. All right, so gender 2 is M, so it will display M here. Okay, and then it goes back up. All right, and then J updated to 3. Okay, so gender is 3 less than 6 true, so gender 3 is F, so it will display F and with a space. Then it goes back up, J++, it becomes 4, is 4 less than 6 true, it will go inside, so gender 4, it will have M. All right, so go back up, J++, it becomes 5, is 5 less than 6 true, then we go inside. What is inside gender? Gender 5. All right, so it will display F. Okay, then it goes back up, J++, this becomes 6. So is 6 less than 6? That is false, so we want to stop there. We only want to take from here until here. Okay, but if you want to include the S, then you can do I instead of I minus 1. Right, so this is basically how we do our program. All right, just one more thing, make sure that you declare your I, so we can do here int I. All right, so this is how we solve this problem.